Okay, so in the last video we saw how you could connect to specific files, and we did an example of an Excel file and a CSV file. Now this method allows you to connect to a single file, and more specifically a single tab when working with Excel files. But let's suppose you had an Excel file and it had many tabs of data within it. You don't want to have to drag and drop 5 input data tools onto the canvas for 5 different inputs. Well, fortunately there is a more efficient way of being able to bring in multiple tabs with one input tool. So let's see how this is done. Firstly, we're going to start in the same way by dragging a single input tool onto the canvas. We can then locate the file that we want to import data in from. In this example, I have a file called sales, which shows sales for different regions. Now previously, we selected a sheet to import a specific tab into Alteryx, but this time we're going to select the option that says import only the list of sheet names, and then we'll click OK. When we do this, we end up getting a list of the Excel tab names appearing in the preview window. So we have a tab called England, a tab called Ireland, a tab called Scotland, and a tab called Wales. Now the next thing we need to do is drag in a tool called the Dynamic Input tool. So to find this, we can simply search for it in the search bar, and then we can drag the tool directly onto the canvas from there, joining it to the Input Data tool. Now within the Dynamic Tool configuration options, we need to input a data source template. Now this is very important as it sets out the template that Alteryx will look for when importing the data. Now I've created a clean example here where each tab in the Excel file has the same structure, i.e. the England tab has the same column header names in the same order as the Wales tab, the Scotland tab and the Ireland tab. So we can select any of the sheet names to act as our template. Now because we have the same column headers as well as ordering, Alteryx will simply align the data in each tab underneath the correct columns. If however we had the same names but in a different order, Alteryx will still configure the input, but it will do it by name, aligning the columns accordingly. Now sometimes column headers are different, in which case Alteryx will configure the input to be based on position, i.e. column 1 data will go under column 1 data of another tab, which is why it's always best practice to get your data structures clean, with column names and ordering in the same format. It will save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. Once we've selected our template, we can simply click OK. Now within the same dynamic input configuration window, we need to tell Alteryx what field to look into from the input data tool, which we know only has one field called sheet names. So let's go and select this field from the field drop-down list. Now the action we need to select in this example will be the change file/table name, as this will search for the respective tab in Excel if it matches with the list of sheet names in the prior sheet, and input the data accordingly. Now the last thing we are going to do is add a browse tool after the dynamic input tool, so we can observe the results afterwards. When we run the workflow, you can see that it completes in 1 second, and if we were to click onto the canvas and go to the messages page, you can see that the dynamic input tool has gone into each tab and read in the data accordingly, with 76 records being fed in across 4 files, i.e. the tabs in our example. If I click on the browse tool and scroll down the results window, you can see we have one set of data with England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales all being brought into the dataset, despite being from separate tabs. Now we can click on the sales column and analyse the results across the 4 datasets as if it was one. So hopefully this was useful to see how to bring in multiple tabs of data into one dataset by using a single input tool. In summary, we use the input data tool in conjunction with the dynamic input tool to read in multiple sheets from the same Excel file. We have to provide a template, which is very important as it sets the structure of the data that will be read in. It is best practice to have the format of the sheets identical across each tab in order for Alteryx to configure the input correctly. In other words, the ordering of the columns needs to be the same. Ideally, the names of the columns should also be the same. However, if the column names are slightly different, but the data structure is the same, the input will be done positionally. So try to keep your inputs and data structures as consistent as possible when using this method, to avoid running into nuances with the input.